Hello, Year 11. I'm here to tell you about the sports course at Ashton Sixth. As you can see from all the pictures below, there are all sorts of ways in which people can be involved in sport. You can be a coach, you can take risks and do adventure activities. You can be younger, you can be older. It's about the competitive element, but it's also just about that joining in and being part of a team. There are all sorts of things that you can do. On the sport course, you will be taught by PE specialists who have been involved in teaching this course for a long time, and we truly believe that it is about sport in the whole wider sense of it, from the teamwork to the nutrition to injury prevention, and a wide range of elements of sport. Is it good? We think it's really, really good, and we have great reports from other people in previous pupils who have stayed involved in sport, who regularly let us know how they're getting on and ask us for references to go on to do more sporting activities and courses. So it is good because you can do a range of things with sport in the future. I've put a few of them here. The list is quite endless. It is a massive, massive industry which you can go into. And this course will allow you those gateways into that area of activity, whether that is onto university afterwards or through apprenticeships or going into a leisure centre and working your way up. Here's a list of the units that we do with you at Ashton Sixth. There are 9 units. You do them over the 2 years of the course, and you'll have a mix of teachers for the different units. Some of the units are exam-based, but most of them are coursework-based, and some have a more practical element where we do fitness testing, health monitoring tests. You'll do practice interviews for sports jobs, etc. The one that we're going to focus on is Unit 2, the fitness training and programming for health, sport and well-being. So this is all about the health of the nation generally. Why should people be active? Why should we look after ourselves? What sort of lifestyle choices do we have? And what's the consequences of making those choices? The positive consequences of getting a good night's sleep, or the knock-on effects of several late nights and stress added on to that. The board will give us a client that we will talk about. So it might be a male or a female, they might be fairly active, or they might have quite a sedentary job, and it will give us a bit of a background to their lifestyle, and we will have to think about that question and how we might be able to help that client with the information that we know about healthy lifestyles. When we talk about healthy lifestyles, we're talking about sort of 6 major factors that help us to be healthy. What are the choices of the way that we're going to live our lives? Are we going to get enough sleep? Are we going to avoid smoking? Are we going to drink too much? Are we going to put ourselves under lots and lots of pressure and stress? Or do we have ways of coping with those things? Are we going to be active and make it part of our daily life? Or does it become something that there are barriers in our way and it's something that stops happening for certain people? The recommendation from the government is to do at least 30 minutes of activity at least 5 times a week. I wonder how many some of us actually do, and some of the excuses that we can find sometimes to not be doing that. We are concerned with the general health of the nation as opposed to specific elite athletes, although that is part of the conversations that we have when we talk about training methods and what different athletes need to succeed. So we're looking at these general 6 about the importance of our health and well-being. I've got some research for you. So you can pause in a moment and go and find out the answers to some of these questions. So what is CHD? What contributes to developing it? And those other questions that follow. Don't worry about giving me loads and loads of information. Don't worry about lots of notes to be taken. Just have a little look about what are those things? What do you know already? Have a think about them. What would your answers be? And I'll see you in a moment. Okay, wonder if you came up with some of these. So CHD is short for coronary heart disease, and it is a disease that causes a narrowing within the blood vessels that carry oxygen to the heart. And without oxygen, we know that that has awful consequences on the body, and it is usually caused by a building up of fatty deposits, which is the answer to your next one. Type 2 diabetes, it is a very serious condition where the insulin can't work properly or it doesn't supply enough insulin, and it means that your blood glucose sugar levels are in a regular state of being high. It can be prevented by choosing to eat healthily, being active, making sure we sort of lose weight if we're carrying too much weight, and trying to avoid being inactive for too long. Health issues from drinking lots of alcohol. So we're talking about cirrhosis of the cirrhosis of the liver, and we need to think about the mental side of drinking too much alcohol as well. It can lead to depression, it can lead to mood swings and being irritable. So in our course, we talk about both sides of those things, the physical sides of being healthy and the mental sides of being healthy. And this will allow you to go into different areas. You might go into sports psychology, into mental health areas within the NHS and other medical areas. Stress. Stress is the proper word given to our state of mind at a particular time, depending on the pressure that's being put on it. Sometimes stress is really good for us. It makes us meet that deadline. It makes us jump higher for a ball. It makes us not give up on a football pitch or in a netball game. But sometimes when that stress is regularly high, that leads to negative consequences for us and can lead to anxiety and depression. Symptoms of stress: making mistakes, lack of concentration, becoming irritable, etc. Okay. There are so many benefits of physical exercise, and the black writing coming out from that middle part are some of these benefits. So it strengthens the bones, it improves our posture, it improves our body shape, and it helps to reduce the risk of chronic disease. Chronic disease means it's diseases that have built up over time. And you'll see there from the offshot of the various elements, the reasons why. So for strengthening bones, when we apply pressure on the bones, it makes the bones more dense from within and helps them to be stronger to withhold more pressure, maybe when we're running or withstanding a tackle or a fall in some of the sports that we might play. Improves our posture. If you are doing exercise, that improves your muscle tone, which means that your spine straightens, your abdominal muscles are stronger, your shoulders are straightened and more straight, and that just allows overall improved posture in our body. We're able to reduce chronic diseases because we're exercising, we're increasing the strength of the heart. That means it can pump more blood around the body in one beat. It keeps the arteries wider because we're making sure those fatty deposits don't build up, and it improves the body shape. So if we exercise and we are burning calories and we're using up the carbohydrates and the simple sugars that we put into our body, then they haven't got the chance to rest and build up into fatty deposits, which change the shape of our body. So it allows us, when we exercise, it allows us to keep and maintain that body shape. Being physically active isn't just about those physical benefits, though. It is so good for our social side, economic side, and psychological side. It makes us feel good when the chemicals in our brain are sending all those feel good hormones around our body. And you might have heard of the word endorphins before, and we would go into that in some more detail during more lessons. I've put 3 question marks at the top of these boxes, and I'm wondering if you could just have a look now to see where you would put psychological, social, and economic. Whereabouts on those three columns would you put each one of those? So what would be the title at the top according to the four elements below? Have a think. So hopefully you had social for the first one. So being physically active and engaging with other people allows us to have more social interaction with people that have got similar interests to us. It improves our social skills because we have to start making conversation. We have to accept when we lose, and we have to think about how we're going to behave. We have to be gracious in that defeat. We have to congratulate people, and we have to work hard. It reduces isolation, so you've got somewhere to be and people to be with. It helps your self-esteem and your confidence. If you are changing your body shape and you are interacting with lots of people all of the time, and you've got that constant feeling of endorphins going around your body, you actually do feel better about yourself. You become more confident, you become more relaxed, and your mental state can then improve, which is the whole knock-on effect of the benefits of exercise. The middle column is about the economic benefits. So it reduces the costs that the NHS has to pay. If the NHS don't have to perform operations due to people being severely overweight and leading to coronary heart disease, then they won't be having to do as many heart surgeries for that particular reason. They won't have to do as many hip and knee operations for those reasons, or fitting gastric bands, or treating type 2 diabetes. It creates employment when physical activity is involved. Leisure centres going up places, they need leisure managers, they need fitness trainers, they need holiday club leaders, so it leads to employment. It supports local businesses that then feed off and set up their own business to do with health and exercise. When we talk about reducing absenteeism from work, so if an employee is healthy because they do exercise, it usually means that their immune system is developed, they've got good posture so they don't get as much backache, they're not needing to ask for as much time off work, which means they're in work, they're producing the goods, and the boss is getting the best from their employers as well. And then the psychological factor is the last column. So it relieves stress because we are physically involved in something. You can't help but lose yourself in that moment. So it allows you to not think about other things. When you exercise, it does send the chemicals around your body which allow you to feel good. You can't help it. It is a chemical reaction. So it helps to relieve and reduce depression. It improves your mood. You feel better, at least in that time. And when your exercise is finished, maybe you've been for a run, your head is clearer and you feel more able to deal with the day ahead or issues that are going on. It does improve your concentration because you have sent more red blood cells around your body, which carry oxygen, and therefore there's more oxygen going around, which allows you to concentrate more. Now, there are definite government recommendations. The government lay down actual guidelines. They say, if you do this, it will be good for you. And they work very closely with scientists and nutritionists and people that advise them on these recommendations. So the hope is that if everybody was to be actively engaged in physical activity of any sort, then it would reduce the amount of stress and pressure on the NHS, because there would be less obesity, there would be less diseases related to smoking and drinking, and it would allow money to be spent elsewhere. There wouldn't be necessarily as many drop-in sessions needed for support groups, etc., that are provided by the NHS. Some of the money, it is spent on lifelong medication, it's spent on operations. Can you see if you could maybe find some more examples? We've mentioned some that you can think of that actually, if people were fit and healthy, the money wouldn't be being spent on this. Okay. The government advises that there are two different types of activity that adults do. See if you can think what those two types of activity might be, and we'll discuss it in a moment. And what do you think the recommendations are for somebody of your age? How much activity should you be doing each week, and what type of activity is that? Ta-da, there's the answers. So in the white, you can see that children aged 5 up to 18 years of age should be active for about 60 minutes per day, and that is moderate to vigorous activity. Moderate activity will be something that makes your skin feel a bit warmer, might get slightly out of breath, and up to vigorous. So for 5-year-olds, that's running around the playground. That might be the walk to school and the walk home from school, then their PE lesson, and then all the game of tag that they might play in non-COVID times, just in the playground. And when they get home, they just want to play. As you get older, it is still about that walk to work or joining that football club, being active during that time, being engaged, really engaged in your PE lessons a couple of times a week, in the lunch times, in doing clubs after school, just at playtime, running around with your friends, being active, making up games, or actually being at home as you get older and deciding to go for a run, to go for a game of tennis with your friends. It's suggested that you do activity for strength 3 times a week. So anywhere where you have to hold your own strength. So it might be press ups, sit-ups, tricep dips, squats, anything that actually where you are resisting your body, that helps to build strength. And you don't need to do weight training until you are older. And even then it would have to be very sensibly supervised so that you get it right and you're not overdoing it. For adults, 30 minutes at least 5 times a week, and strength should be at about twice a week at least. Compare what you do. Now, part of the unit is for you to think, okay, these are what some of the issues are. So lack of sleep, smoking, too much alcohol, not a great diet, coping with stress. So those are the lifestyle factors. We've looked at some of the effects of what could happen if you don't keep these under control. And then the next thing we look at is the strategies. I've put some here. It's by no means an exhaustive list. And in a moment, it'd be really good for you to actually think, oh, some of the things that I would also suggest that aren't on this list are, and you could add to that. So in terms of getting more active, there are loads of initiatives out there, from trying to do 10,000 steps a day. That's quite easy. Pedometers are quite cheap now. Different types of Fitbits that people can wear to track their steps, how many calories are burned, when they're most active in a day, when they're more likely to be least active. Does that encourage something in your brain to make you change that thought and go for more walks? So 10,000 steps, take the stairs instead of the lift. Get off the bus a few stops early, walk instead of take the car. Park runs, they're very family orientated. You can do short runs or longer ones. You can be competitive, you can walk, you can take the dog. Couch to 5K, that's a really, really good initiative where a voice talks to you in your headphones and it tells you when to walk, when to start jogging, when you can walk again. And eventually you build up to more running, way less walking, and then eventually you are running 5 kilometers. You could exercise with a friend. If you actually commit to something and say to somebody, you will be on that corner at 7 o'clock, you're less likely to break the plan because you've made it with someone else and not just yourself. So make a date. When we're talking about changing our diet, what about some meat-free days? If we're trying to reduce the fat content in our diet, that might be one way to do it. If we're decreasing the fat, that maybe means that we're actually increasing the vitamins and minerals that we're putting into our body because we're maybe eating more fish, so that carries magnesium. I eat more fruit and vegetables with a side salad, and that helps to boost our immune system, helps to make our eyes nice and strong, etc. Love your labels. That's a government initiative which is got a label on the back of every packet now to make it easier for people to just lift. And even if they don't understand everything about nutrition and food, they can read that label and it will help them to make a decision about whether it's green for good or it's heading towards amber or maybe even red in terms of fat content, salt and sugar content, and maybe whether you should just put it back and look for something of a more healthy alternative. Could you grill or oven cook your food instead of fry it? That's one way of just making minor changes to what we're doing for our diet. Eat to feel full, not stuffed. Put on your plate what it is that you think you will have. Have a rest. Don't eat in front of the television because we're not concentrating on what we're eating. We're just eating. And then the next thing your food's gone and the brain hasn't had time to digest, whether it's hungry or whether the stomach is full. And sometimes we overeat. So have a think about what is on your plate. Concentrate on what's going into your mouth. Enjoy your food and stop when you're full, not stuffed. Don't stock up. If those biscuits aren't in the cupboard, you can't eat them. Have a think, maybe, are you actually thirsty and not hungry? Lots of us do not drink enough fluids whatsoever. So actually, having a moment, have a drink first, take a few more minutes. Obviously, if you are hungry, you need to eat. We need to make sure we are putting energy into our body. But it might be that those feelings that you're having are that you're actually quite thirsty. Try that first. What alternatives could we have? If you're craving something sweet, instead of a bar of chocolate, could you have a piece of fruit, which is naturally got sugars in it? In terms of dealing with stress and anxiety, what ways could we deal with that? Maybe make lists, prioritize what has to be done, ask for help, tell people that this needs to be done and could you please do this and I'll do this. Try and share the chores at home. Take some work off each other. Have a real think about what some of the consequences will be. It might be that we're worrying over things that can be solved by telling somebody or just moving it to another time. Trying to get that work-life balance right. It is so important to try and find that time for you to do some exercise, for you to meet friends, as well as do your schoolwork, do part-time jobs, etc. So trying to get that right and making those lists and prioritizing could be one way of doing that. We need to get some sleep. It is so important, and the government guidelines would be about 8 hours a day. So it's weird, but by exercising, it actually helps to release the chemicals that will allow us to relax, get rid of those things that are running around our head. So exercise actually does generate that ability to rest and is good for us. So we should try and get it into our day every day. And allow some time out from the noise, time out from the games and the gaming, from our phone. Just actually have some time to do not very much at all and see if that helps our head. So those are some of the strategies that can be used that we discuss in lesson to help people get activity into their everyday, to get thinking about diet just part of a habit rather than something that's awful to always be thinking about food and being deprived of things, and how we can deal with stresses that come our way. So how can you be brilliant on this course? I'm sure you will be. You're already looking at sports course because that's what you're interested in for whatever different reason. That might be that you want to go on to be a physiotherapist and you don't necessarily have to be a sports player. You don't have to be great on the rules of games. You don't have to want to go into coaching, but some of you will definitely want to go into that coaching role, and we will look at those sorts of things for you as well. So well done for looking, well done for watching this video. Here's a couple of tips on the things that you can be thinking about yourself now. Are you organised? Do you ask questions? Could you ask more questions? Trying to link what you already know about sports and activity to the client that we end up talking about in this particular unit. But for the whole sport course, just being organised, learning how to take really good notes that will help your coursework or that will help the exam. Having a good use of the English language is helpful because it allows you to talk in a more eloquent way, in a sophisticated way that will get your point across very well and will allow you to back it up with examples and acting on feedback. There's nothing worse that holds you back more if you've handed in some work and it is marked and then the feedback comes back to you, and instead of acting on it, we pick and choose little bits. So just act on that feedback that the teacher gives you to make your work even better. There are a few things that you could do between now and starting the course in September. I've mentioned some of them, just things to consider. You might look at how much activity you actually do in a week. Is it 60 minutes every day? Are there any strength activities involved in that? What about the rest of your family? What do they do? How often do we drive instead of taking a walk or the bus when it's only down the road? Could we cycle somewhere to help out with some of the chores? Have a think about in your own coaching, how do the coaches get you to be motivated? How do they put themselves across? How professional are they? Because some of the units that we cover are about coaching and performance. So there's a few things there just to whet the appetite and get you thinking about. Part of it might involve watching some sports programs. What do you know about the rules? Why did one particular performer maybe not do so well? Are they lacking in speed, or were they lacking in cardiovascular endurance or stamina in that particular game? Have a think about what they could do to improve that. The football is on currently, Wimbledon is on currently, so there's lots to be looking at to get you thinking. Really, 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 we are looking forward to seeing you in person in September. And if you do have questions, then please send them to Ask PE or to myself, Debs Wynn at ashtonpark.net. Take care, be safe, stay active.